Okay, council, we're live on YouTube.
Thank you. Colleagues, it now being 5 o'clock, I'm going to call to order our regular council meeting of Tuesday, February 9th, 2021. And I'd like everybody to begin by observing a moment of silence so that council, staff, and members of the public can quietly reflect on our duty to the community that we are trying to serve. Thank you. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of council, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and made available on the internet. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk. We will move on to the minutes. We actually have 3 sets of minutes to address. We have the regular council minutes of January the 19th. We have the special council meeting of January 29th, where we were dealing with the dashboard review, and the January 29th draft operations budget minutes. Deputy Mayor Senes is going to move all of those. Councillor Locke is going to second it. Is there any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Those minutes are approved. Thank you. We will then move on to deputations, and if you just give me a second here. Okay, we're going to move on to deputations as well as questions. And so I just, I'm going to make a couple of comments before we start. There is clearly significant interest on the issue of 44 Bridge Street. Tonight is an opportunity to gather information. Some additional key information, the Heritage Brief and the Heritage Committee's review of that brief will not be available until a later date. This is the process that we're going to follow, colleagues. We are going to listen to 3 delegations tonight from Fred Bennett, Jackie Willette, and Sabrina Hall. Each delegation is for 10 minutes, a maximum of 10 minutes. I'm going to ask Angie to give notice at 1 minute, and then I will let the presenter know at 10 minutes, and I will ask you to immediately conclude. Next, I will ask Rob to present his report on this subject. I will then ask the clerk to pose the questions received by 4:30, by the 4:30 deadline. Either myself or a member of the staff will answer those questions. When all of those things are completed, I'm going to then ask each councillor to make their intervention. I'm going to start with the ward councillor, Anita Locke, and then I'll move on to Deputy Mayor Senes, to Councillor Herron, and then to Councillor Ballantyne. And then I will provide concluding comments. And once that has all been completed, I will seek a motion to receive the delegations and the staff report. Okay, colleagues, and so I will call upon, and because we're in a COVID situation, we're using technology as opposed to be in person, so bear with us if we have some challenges with that. So I am going to ask Mr. Bennett if he is ready to make his presentation, and to ask the clerk to liven up his access, his feed. Mr. Bennett? Here you are.
Good evening. Actually, our presentation is a joint presentation with my CEO, Sarah Budd. She will speak first, and she has a PowerPoint presentation for you, and I will speak toward the end.
Okay, everybody can see that?
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, so let me first say thank you to Selwyn Council for allowing us to speak tonight and address the issues surrounding 44 Bridge Street. Habitat for Humanity is a nonprofit organization that believes affordable housing plays a critical role in strong and stable communities. Locally, we have helped 42 families into homeownership since 2002. As you know, we are in the midst of a devastating affordable housing crisis, the ramifications of which are not just hurting those that are homeless, but even working families are literally having to make choices between paying rent and buying food. It can be argued that our region is one of the hardest hit. The increased demand due to the 407 extension, the lack of available land, increased prices in larger markets have had dramatic effects on our local home prices. The average price of a home sold in December of 2020 was almost $596,000, up more than 30% from 2019. To put that in perspective, even with a $30,000 down payment, to be affordable, a household would need to make $100,000 in gross income. In addition, we are losing rental stock to owners getting out and selling for high profits. Developers are no longer building apartments, but instead planning lucrative high-end luxury condos. Our recent needs study states that our region requires an additional 4,056 affordable units by 2029. Selwyn alone requires 398. So that is why, armed with this information, we decided to pivot. No longer content to build 3 to 5 homes a year, we decided to go all in to make a huge impact on hundreds of households across our region. To do this, we developed a plan to build affordable condos. The most difficult part of our plan was finding land. The few properties that would work in terms of zoning and size, etc., always went to developers with deep pockets. And then in the spring of 2018, we found 44 Bridge Street. We did our due diligence, spoke with township staff, and learned it was zoned commercial since 1988, and that this 1-acre property on the main street would eventually be revitalized. We learned we would be required to have commercial on the bottom, but the residential above would be permitted. After the conversations with some of our Lakefield stakeholders, we made an offer and purchased the property. We spent the next year working on designs to build a 20-unit condo building with commercial space. We attended a pre-consultation meeting, which is normal township county procedure. We then met again with township staff to go over in detail the pre-consultation report. All along, we proceeded as township staff directed. Then, as we all knew too well, the pandemic hit in March. All 3 of our restores were closed. We are not government funded. Our restores pay for administration costs, so that was a real blow. And as for many, it was something we didn't see coming and had not planned for. We laid off most of our staff, reducing us to a skeleton crew. We continue to fight to protect our home building program and keep on track with the starting of 45 homes we were planning for 2020. In the summer, it became clear that a second wave would be inevitable, and we knew we had to be prepared. We also knew more affordable homes were now needed more than ever. And since 44 Bridge Street was at least 2 years from being shovel ready, we made the difficult but prudent decision to put the property on the market in August. With the proceeds of the property sale, we'll be able to reduce our debt and quickly work to help build much needed units. Please remember, Habitat is one of the few that builds affordable units, and we are the only local builder of affordable homeownership units. Our plans also include working with organizations to help them increase the supply of affordable rentals. Habitat has never been needed more. We have received over 400 applications for affordable housing last year. We are very proud that we were able to start 45 homes in 2020, more than the total number of homes we have built in our first 18 years. And I think we all now know, as we're at home every day under stay-at-home orders, how vitally important it is to have a home that is safe, appropriately sized, and affordable. We are ready to tackle this crisis, but we need the Township of Selwyn's leadership and partnership to move forward.
Thank you, Sarah. First, I'd like to be clear that Habitat has no expertise in the area of built heritage. We therefore have no opinion on the heritage value of the stone house. All we know is that during our due diligence, no indication was given that there were any heritage issues with the property. So we find it difficult to understand why, after so many years, no action was taken with regard to this house until now at the 11th hour. We understand that the Bridge Street property was being considered for nomination by members of the Heritage Committee in late 2020. But as the landowner, we were not contacted, so we didn't know about it. This is unfortunate, obviously, because at the time, we didn't have a sale agreement in place. The situation today might be very different if the committee had contacted us. In fact, the Heritage Committee went on to vote to support option 3 of the staff report to designate our property without ever contacting us about it. While the Heritage Committee considered the heritage issue, there are some wider issues to consider. One is the precedent set when the Heritage Committee recommends designating a property zoned commercial for 32 years and not on the heritage list, while a sale is pending without contacting the landowner to discuss this. Council may wish to consider what landowners in Selwyn will think, what concerns this will raise with realtors, and what impact a designation like this would have on development in the township. The chair of the Heritage Committee stated that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of properties out there that still need to be designated. The process that is followed to do so should be fair to all landowners in Selwyn. But more important to Habitat is the financial damage to our organization if this issue is not resolved in a way that respects our investment in the property. Such damage, on top of the damage already done by the 2 pandemic lockdowns, would be catastrophic to us. It would have a serious and lasting impact on our ability to provide affordable housing in Selwyn and the rest of our region, with the result that many people in our region will be left without access to safe, decent, and affordable housing for years to come. Now, with respect to solutions, let me first say that we are not able to negotiate with any party with respect to the property, and we cannot speak to the intentions of the buyer. This is because of our sale agreement in hand. This makes our position extremely awkward, but we are under a legal requirement to act in good faith with respect to the buyer, and we must continue to do so. Second thing I'd like to talk about is to reiterate that Habitat followed all the normal due diligence processes and followed the guidance of township staff. Had we been made aware that there was a potential issue with respect to the stone house, we would not have purchased the property. The normal process has been disrupted, and we are threatened with serious financial loss as a result. In such situations, where parties disagree but no one is guilty of wrongdoing, we believe it is council's duty to treat all parties fairly and not reach a decision that impacts negatively on one party alone. In other words, Habitat should not be damaged by council's decision, whatever that decision might be. The purchase of 44 Bridge Street was made to support Selwyn by providing more safe, decent, and affordable home ownership opportunities during a housing crisis. It is clearly unfair that Habitat should suffer financial damage due to a last-minute decision regarding the stone house. Thankfully, we believe that there are many potential outcomes that would be acceptable to all parties. We have no desire to tell council what to do. However, in our view, there are many possible courses of action that have good prospects for satisfying all parties. We have pointed out some of these in our letter to the council. In our opinion, it is clearly in the best interests of the community that Habitat not suffer damage from a heritage designation on the Bridge Street property. Habitat continues to have faith in our partnership with this community and the processes the council has established. Thank you. To demonstrate good faith, Habitat will not demolish the stone house until such time as this process is finalized or the sale is completed, whichever comes first. We believe this will allow for breathing space for council to consider its position and for solutions to be found that are consistent with Selwyn's vision for Bridge Street, the community's built heritage, and the region's critical need for safe, decent, and affordable housing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fred. I will now call on Jackie Willett to give her presentation, and just a reminder to respect the 10-minute limit. Thank you.
Hello, am I live? Can you hear
Yes,
me?
you are.
Okay, thank you. Actually, this slide deck is being shared with Michael Chappell, and he's going first. So he's got the slides up, and he's going to do 5 minutes, and I will do 5 minutes, if that's okay with Mayor and Council.
That's great. Professor, floor is yours.
Michael, are you there? Sorry, I think he's trying to log in here. Tan, you can.
Have I finally got it unmuted?
Okay.
Okay,
Problems
go ahead,
with technology go on forever. Thank you very much, Council, for taking the time to meet with our delegation. Firstly, I want to talk a little bit myself, and I'll let Jackie introduce herself when she gets to her slides. I grew up in Lakefield. I attended public school and high school in Lakefield. Like a lot of people, I left town to find a career, and I've now come back in the later stages of my career. Since I've left Lakefield, I worked in development as a consulting engineer for 10 years. I've developed subdivisions across Ontario, more than thousands of homes at a time. I've built hundreds of municipal streets and services. I work with many of the major developers. I was employed with the Ontario government as a provincial coordinator of construction for 12 years. And in the last part of my career, I've spent 20 years now working as a professor with Ryerson University, teaching advanced investigation theory and courses related to regulatory law in Ontario. This is not really about if 44 Bridge Street has historical significance. The information we've already provided that Heritage Committee and your Heritage Consultant and our addenda to this slide already show it. When Frank Darcy built his home in 1858, Lakefield's population was 100 people. He and his brother, Joseph, had just graduated from Colonel Sam Strickland's School for Young Farmers. Frank even danced at graduation with Catherine Trail. He's been a guest of the Stricklands and their extended family, and he's really one of our founding citizens. When the mill opened in 1858, it spurred a sudden rapid growth in Lakefield, from 100 people to 400 people in 10 years. By 1900, Lakefield had 1,400 people, multiple mills, including boat building, the Lakefield Portland Cement Company, and a railroad connection to the Grand Trunk Railroad. All of this growth was possible and begun because of the construction of the Strickland Dam, the Kachewanuka Darcy Flour Mill. No one has ever told me that they don't think this property is historic. That's not the question. It's also not about Habitat Humanity or anything they did or failed to do. They apparently have a firm offer to sell the property. Apparently they'll profit $250,000 when that purchase closes in March of this year. The only thing I have concern about as much the way Fred Bennett talked about is the process involved. Obviously there's something wrong here. The consultation process hasn't worked properly. As president of the Historical Society in Lakefield, the first time I became aware of this was a month ago. And in that month, we've been working hard to try to save this property. I haven't yet heard directly from Habitat, and I'm concerned about that. The Ontario Heritage Act is there to designate historic properties. There is already sufficient evidence in the community and with the Municipal Heritage Committee to prove that this is a historic property. There's many other comparable properties, and I know I've dealt with many of them in my years as a developer, where council simply went ahead and created a heritage designation without going through the process of making an intent to designate or having a heritage report done. I'm not arguing with the process. I'm just saying that this is something that you've added rather than something that has to be done. 30 years ago, the precursor, the LAAC in Lakefield, had a proposal to designate in 2003. Somehow during the amalgamation, I believe this slipped off the table. The intent was there. It was going to be done. Our proposal is not to make Heritage Habitat Humanity lose anything. We want to develop this property at fair market value. We're raising funds to do so. And we are forming a nonprofit corporation as an affiliate of the Ontario Heritage Group to do so. So we don't expect people to lose money. We want to develop this property. We want to save our heritage, and we want your help to do so. The authority was with council, and it's your decision. Jackie, over to you.
Thanks, Michael. I think I know a few people on council, not many, but my name is Jackie Ouellette, and I'm retired from provincial government for about 2 years now, where I worked in land claims and treaties with First Nations, or for the provincial government on First Nations treaties in this area and harvesting rights specifically. So I was on that negotiating team with Williams Treaties First Nations. And before that, I was a project manager for developing the concept and subsequent design build of an eco-resource center in Northern Ontario, which is there to this day. So I've got a bit of background in these types of community projects. And I also have a lot of knowledge of this particular area. And I can tell you that I had a discussion today with one of the council members at Curve Lake about the information that's been put forward by Habitat around consultation, and if Curve Lake was part of that consultation, and I can confirm that they were not. And there is no, there's holes in the whole who was told what and what kind of support there is for from First Nations for knocking down a heritage property, knocking down a heritage building, but also demolishing a heritage site, which is adjacent, as you well know, to the Trent Severn, and the First Nations do have interest in that. So I would just lead with that and tell you that I continue to work with Curve Lake and other First Nations in the area as a volunteer in partnership development projects specific to environmental type projects. And that's how I got involved in my interest in this one, of course. So I too have only known about this particular situation with Habitat selling to a developer approximately 3 weeks ago. I live in the neighborhood where about 2 blocks, I guess, less than 2 blocks from where that is. I myself live in a heritage house, my husband and I. And so it was about 3 weeks ago that we became aware of it because of one of our neighbors adjacent to the property, who is very, very concerned about when they heard that there was going to be a development, particularly a strip mall with on that site, and of course, you know, they're concerned for that heritage property. Everyone in our neighborhood, well, I guess you could say, has always been under the impression that that property was a heritage property, and so the surprise, first of all, that Habitat even owned it, and second of all, that Habitat had sold it to a developer. Yeah, that's what we've been dealing with for about 3 weeks now. So it kind of went from outrage to organizing very, very quickly. In a matter of 3 weeks, we have come together as a community to support, we hope, the Heritage Committee and Mayor and Council in moving that property to heritage designation. We have put a lot of effort into letter writing campaigns, establishing the Friends of the Old Stone Mill House and forming as a not-for-profit. We've begun to raise funds through our website, Friends of the Old Stone Mill House website. We are regularly getting 500 hits a day on that website, and very good financial support, pledging, in the hopes that at some point in the future, should it be possible after helping move to heritage designation, that we will be able to purchase the property through our not-for-profit. There's another not-for-profit working with us, as well as hopefully the First Nations coming on board with this. So we've, as you know, we've written letters. We have done some rallies, COVID-friendly rallies, and
one minute left.
sorry. And so I just say that we've built some very significant, quickly, some significant community engagement and partnerships, and capacity to acquire, protect, and manage the Old Stone property as a center for expanding cultural and natural heritage awareness protection in Selwyn Township and Kawartha Lakes. So we want to work together with Mayor and Council and Selwyn Township and our partners to have that property designated, protect it, and develop it for something that's a benefit to our community. That is absolutely our focus. And I just wanted to say in the last slide that we are ready to do whatever is required to help out, to support Mayor and Council, to pass that motion of intent to designate. We have been, I personally and Michael have been providing
Jackie, I'm going to ask
a lot
you to wrap up, please.
Thank you. We have been providing a lot of information to the heritage assessor that you have hired. Anyway, so I would wrap up by saying thank you for listening to us today, and we hope that you will help us in working towards a solution for this property that reflects the community interests. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to our third delegation, Sabrina Hall.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Sure can.
Okay, so my name's Sabrina. I'm here today as a Habitat homeowner to give you some insight on my experience with Habitat. So whenever I tell my Habitat story, I start back in 2011. At that time, I was living what I thought was my best life. I was renting a very nice, large house with my daughter and her father, with plans to grow our family. However, by the middle of that year, our world came crashing down when I was diagnosed with cancer. Our plans abruptly changed, and everything that we thought we knew was suddenly on its ear. We made the tough decision to downsize to a small apartment with the financial strain that a cancer diagnosis brings. We thought this would be a temporary situation, but little did I know that that temporary was going to become not so temporary. We moved into this apartment in the summer. I finished my treatments, continued on with life, and come February 2012, my daughter's father suddenly passed away. I was now in a very fragile state where I was not recovered from my cancer diagnosis. I was on my own, which I hadn't been in a number of years. And I was in a position where I hadn't been working for a while because I had been ill. Our income was suddenly lost. And like I said, our temporary situation was no longer temporary. After fighting for my life, I was now starting over. This apartment that we were living in was inadequate, and that became very obvious our first winter there. The heating was not sufficient. The windows were breezy. The apartment was small, and my daughter was young. My daughter was literally bouncing off the walls with no outdoor area to play, no safe space. We were bordered by a road on 3 sides and an open field that did not belong to us and wasn't accessible. This situation with my daughter ended up resulting in an ADHD diagnosis. The doctor was telling me that the situation was not ideal, that she needed to be out of this apartment. She needed something where she could expend this energy. This was devastating as a mother, and I felt like I was failing. I was in a cycle of poverty that was impossible to break on my own. As you know, housing in the area is expensive, and my tiny, cold, not suitable apartment was all I could manage at the time. On the recommendation of a friend, I applied for Habitat for Humanity, thinking I had nothing left to lose. And to my surprise, complete surprise, I was accepted. I was getting a house. March 2016, I took possession of this house, and the impact to my family has been immense. My daughter has safe space. She's able to play and express the energy that previously was like a pent-up animal. We're safe, we're cozy, we're warm. My worries and feelings of failure have been relieved. I've been able to complete post-secondary education, which has improved my financial position incredibly and allowed me to provide for my daughter as previously I wasn't able to the level I would have liked to. My house has allowed me to let my daughter play sports. It's allowed me to attend that post-secondary education I spoke of. This pandemic learning has caused struggles with school, and I can afford to get her tutoring, which I wouldn't have previously been able to. All of these differences that this has made in my life has been because of my Habitat house and the impact it has had on my life and my daughter's life, and will continue to have on our lives in the future. And I hope you will consider our experience when making your decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sabrina. Appreciate that. We will now move on to Rob, who is going to just present any salient points that he wants to in his report, and then that will be followed by the question and answer period, and then followed by council comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I don't think I'll go through the entire report. I know that council certainly has been engaged in the debate surrounding the development of this property for several weeks. And council is aware of the fact that the Heritage Committee has had an opportunity to consider a staff report during a recent meeting that they've had. And they also considered input from community residents as well, and ultimately made a recommendation to council, which is summarized in the body of my report. So essentially their recommendation is consistent with their mandate, which is in part to advise, simply to provide advice to council on matters related to built heritage in the community. So ultimately the committee believes that the building is worthy of consideration for designation, subject to the completion and the outcome of a required heritage designation brief. And of course, they would complete a further evaluation, which is consistent with our process. So in accordance with the second component of their resolution, we have engaged a heritage planner to complete the required heritage brief. The completion of the brief is an important step in the designation. It provides the information necessary for the committee to complete its evaluation of the property in accordance with our designation evaluation manual. So essentially the report does recommend that, subject to receipt of the brief by February 17th, that a further report be provided to council for its consideration at its upcoming February 23rd meeting. That report will include the Municipal Heritage Committee's recommendation, which will be informed by the brief and the scoring process. At that point, council will be asked whether or not it proposes to move forward with a notice of its intention to designate, of course, in light of the committee's recommendation and input received from the public and from stakeholders. it's important to note that the Heritage Act does obligate council to consult with its Heritage Committee before deciding on whether or not to proceed with the notice. In addition, the notice must include detailed information that will only be available once the brief has been completed. Council has not been provided with the details required to establish whether or not the property meets the criteria. Consequently, you're really not in a position to make an informed decision on whether or not to move forward. I note as well that Habitat has committed to not moving forward with the demolition of the structure until the designation review process has run its course, or after the completion date of its sale on the 15th of March, whichever comes first. So best provide the fullness, some opportunity to run through the process in a way that's consistent with the Act and with our own procedures. I've spoken with the Heritage Planner, and she is confident that she'll have the brief completed by the 17th, and that of course would allow us to bring the requisite report to council for consideration on the 23rd of February.
Thank you, Robert. We will now go on to the question and answer period, which would normally, as colleagues know, but for the audience that are watching, normally be done in person. There's usually a 15-minute question and answer period. We rotate one question and answered, and it goes to the next person, etc. So in this particular case, we've received, I believe, 11 questions from 9 people before the deadline of 4:30. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the clerk to read the question as it was received, and I will direct it either to, for the most part, it's either to Rob or I will answer the question myself. So if Angie is ready, we can begin.
Thank you. The first question comes from Cindy Windover and is as follows. Did any of the Heritage Committee or the members of this new group wanting to save 44 Bridge Street ever in the past 5 to 10 years make the 2 phone calls or email these days to find out what the status was on that property? Did anyone inquire as to occupancy, heritage status, zoning, if it was for sale, etc.? If not, why not? As an aside to that, it's normal for commercial buildings, businesses to not put up a for sale sign as to alleviate rumors, gossip, and people just being nosy and wanting to have a look at spaces. Normal procedure in real estate, especially if there are tenants in a building.
Thank you, Angie. Maybe Rob, you could answer this one.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so I guess I can see that the Heritage Committee members certainly are aware of which properties are on the register as either designated or listed, and that the list itself is also readily available to anyone with access to the internet on our website. I can't personally recall having responded to any questions about heritage status of the subject property from local ratepayers prior to January of 2021. And in terms of zoning, I can say that I've answered questions through the years from people inquiring about zoning of the property. And again, this information is readily available on our website and is accessible to anybody who would care to want to know.
Thank you, Rob. Next question, Angie.
Thank you. From Dr. Sharon Ragaz, I hope I pronounced that correctly, of Lakefield. Habitat for Humanity is urging council to give priority to issues entirely unrelated to heritage in their voting on 44 Bridge Street. That is improper of them. Ontario guidelines are clear that the heritage value of a property is the only rightful consideration. Can council assure the committee or the community, that they will decide this matter solely on the merits of a heritage designation for 44 Bridge Street?
Thank you, Angie. I'll take this one. So first of all, on behalf of council, I want to assure the community, as was outlined by Rob in his report, that we will consider the heritage brief and the recommendation of the Heritage Committee, as well as input from the community. However, council's decision does not have to be based solely on the merits of the heritage designation. Rather, council considers all aspects of the issue. And we expect that council will be meeting again on this matter on the 23rd of February. Next question, please.
Thank you. The question is from Valerie Cook. According to the February 9th, 2021 council meeting agenda, item number 2, it appears that the discussion surrounding 44 Bridge Street is being framed as a binary choice between either affordable housing or heritage preservation. Why can't Lakefield have both of these?
I'll take that one as well, and a pretty straightforward answer. Yes, Lakefield can have both. And council certainly wants to preserve heritage and support affordable housing. Next question.
Next question is from Tom McAllister. While not on the Heritage Registry, 44 Bridge Street was listed on the Lakefield Selwyn Cultural Resource Map prepared by the Kawartha Land Trust for the Township of Selwyn in 2013. Is one of the oldest homes in Lakefield and played a key role in the early development of the village. According to a document released by HFH on, sorry, it doesn't say what HFH is, on February 4th, discussions with Township Planning Department staff commenced in spring/summer 2018 and continued over several follow-up meetings. How is it that in over 2.5 years, no one at either, Habitat for Humanity or the Planning Department notified or engaged either the Municipal Heritage Committee or the Lakefield Historical Society in any of these stakeholder discussions?
Okay. Rob, perhaps you can answer that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so we do have a prescribed process when it comes to pre-consultation. So what I can say is that the Lakefield Historical Society doesn't play a role in the development approvals process, and the Municipal Heritage Committee would only play its council advisory role if the property were listed on the township's heritage register. Right? So that's why in this particular context they weren't engaged in the process.
Thank you. Next question.
Thank you. Next question is from Susan Twist. The proposed development of a strip plaza on the property at 44 Bridge Street is a surprise to many Lakefield business owners. With COVID lockdowns and several empty storefronts on Queen Street, does council intend to allow the destruction of a key heritage building for the sake of more underutilized office and retail space, or would council consider embracing our built heritage for the promotion of cultural tourism as a catalyst for economic growth?
Yeah, I think I'll take that one. So first of all, I think it's important to recognize that the property is zoned for commercial use. At this point, the township does not know what type of development the potential purchaser may choose. Therefore, it is premature to describe what may or may not happen on the property. If an owner buys the property and makes a business decision to develop that property in compliance with the zoning, that is their prerogative. Council would not be in a position to tell a business that they cannot open their business when they have a legal right to do so. Next question.
Thank you. The question is from John Millage. I will be unable to be part of the Zoom meeting scheduled for February 9th, 2021. I would like to ask the following question. Why was it necessary to have a risk management consultant at the pre-development meeting in August 2019 and not a representative of any Lakefield Heritage Group that may have shed light on the historical significance of 44 Bridge Street?
Rob, perhaps you can do this one.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I covered why it is we didn't engage the Heritage Committee or Lakefield. The Historical Society simply don't play a role, right, in the development process, unless under very specific circumstances that don't apply, right, in this context. I can confirm that essentially the township planner, Jeanette Thompson, our water and sewer project coordinator were in attendance. In addition, the risk management officer from the Conservation Authority was also in attendance, as the property itself is located in a source water protection zone. So that's a zone that's intended to protect water intake to the village. So any development that occurs within that protection zone needs to be reviewed by what is known as a risk management officer.
Thank you, Rob. Angie, the next question.
Thank you. Question is from Ed Polesny. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correct. Over the last 2 years, the CBO has been in consultation with the current property owner and potential developers without engaging the Heritage Committee and the community or divulging the historical significance of the property. This process over the last 2 years has failed. It has also created the conflict between the current landowner and our community over cultural heritage protection that we are debating today. The process to solve the current problem that is laid out in the CBO report entitled Potential Heritage Designation Update to Council today is the same process that led us to where we are today. Are the mayor and council willing to consider a new, open and transparent process going forward to engage meaningful community input and solutions for the heritage designation and protection of this property?
Well, I think I'm going to take this one. So the first thing I would say is that we do conduct business in an open and transparent way. And this meeting is evidence of that fact. This is an open public meeting in which people are engaging, in which people are asking questions. A municipal heritage planner has been engaged to prepare a heritage brief. The brief will be provided to the Municipal Heritage Committee. Similar to the last committee meeting, the public can listen to the discussion, and we'll be sending out a link at the appropriate time. It is expected that the meeting will be scheduled for February 18th, and the brief will be posted on the township's website on the Municipal Heritage Committee's webpage on the date of their meeting, like we did for the last meeting. The public has and continues to send their feedback to the township via email or through written letter mailed to the township. At the February 23rd meeting, the correspondence from residents, the heritage brief, the recommendations of the committee, the staff report will all be available on the website. Agenda materials are posted to the site on the Monday prior to the council meeting. In this case, it'll be the 22nd. Members of the public can register as a delegation to council as well. We live stream the meeting so that anyone can listen to the discussion at the meeting. Thank you. Next question, Angie.
Thank you. The question is from Jackie Ouellette. In support of the heritage designation process, the Friends of the Old Stone Mill House has provided a significant amount of information, documents, and photos to Emily Turner, who is preparing the heritage brief for Selwyn Township. We would like to know if we can receive a copy of the heritage brief and her recommendation as soon as it is submitted to the Heritage Committee, and a copy of the Heritage Committee recommendations to Council as soon as they are submitted to Council.
Okay, I think I'll take this one, and it's similar to the last one. So yes, the brief will be posted on the township's website on the municipal heritage page on the date of their meeting. The discussion of the committee when they're considering the brief is available. There will be a link that will be sent out so that people can listen to their discussions. Next question.
Thank you. The next question is from Linda Gadd. This is her first question. She has another one that we'll talk about later. While I have no proof, I have heard chatter about town that Habitat has purchased property elsewhere in the village or perhaps Peterborough. If this is actually correct and not simply a hopeful rumor, then surely there is no obstacle standing in the way of Habitat, the council, and the building department agreeing to a heritage designation and ultimately to the preservation of the house/home at 44 Bridge Street. Hence, surely there is also no obstacle to the cancellation of the demolition permit.
I think I'll take this one as well. it's really difficult to try to deal with, with chatter or rumors that are going around in the community. The reality is that we've got a process in place, and council will make a decision, assuming that everything comes to us in a timely manner, on designation at the February 23rd meeting. And let's go on to the next one.
Thank you. This is a question from Cindy Windover. It's her second question. So we're cycling back through. Do properties deemed heritage have to follow the same regulations regarding public spaces that others have to, meaning accessible washrooms, wider doorways, parking spaces, etc.? Would any renovations to that building, if it's going to be used as a public space, have to adhere to these codes?
Rob, I'll let you take that one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so I can say that the building code does provide some compliance alternatives that recognize how difficult it is to meet contemporary regulations in a heritage building. So there is some design flexibility available, and that, of course, varies with the intended use and the size of the building, et cetera. So these are typically design issues that are evaluated as a function of the entire design process, right? So there's an awful lot that goes into determining just what sort of flexibility is available, but there are some compliance alternatives available for sure.
Okay, thank you, Rob. And the next question.
Thank you. This is the last question, and it's a second question from Linda Gadd. I also note in Mr. Lamar's report that there is a requirement that townships publish in the newspaper notifications of the intention to designate properties which are about to become heritage protected. I would like to ask why, in the interest of transparency and equity, that it is also not a requirement for the township, even locally within our Selwyn Township, to publish notifications of applications for demolition all old buildings with the community. I can't help but think that there have been had there been a requirement such as this last summer, when I understand the application for demolition of number 44 was first presented, all of this last minute stress, time commitment, and negotiation could have played out much more quickly, more smoothly, and more amicably than it has at the moment. Perhaps the township could see its way to implementing such a policy. Please and thank you. I can see that by doing so, life in the building and planning department would be a whole lot less complicated.
Okay, Rob, that's yours.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure I would agree that it would be less complicated, but yeah. So I think that the answer is, look, we follow the rules the way they're set out, because that provides us with some level of protection against, possible litigation, right? So there's no provision in the building code to publish building permits in the newspaper. I would say that it would certainly be inconsistent with, the process that every municipality that I'm aware of, essentially follows when it comes to issuing permits. And I wouldn't recommend that we would do that.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Thank you, Angie, for reading all those questions. Thank you to the public who submitted those questions. And so now we're going to move on to the interventions from our council members. And we're going to begin with the Lakefield Ward Councillor, Anita Locke. Anita? Still muted, Anita.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I figured it out. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. So as Rob notes in his report, the Municipal Heritage Committee was established in 2010. And it was established as there had been a desire from property owners throughout the township to protect our heritage and culture. The committee is comprised of community volunteers and a council representative, which is me, and is supported by staff. The committee started by becoming familiar with heritage legislation and worked to designate some properties, including the Lakefield Post Office, the Memorial Hall, and the St. Martin's Parish Hall. We held community events with local historical groups to raise awareness about heritage issues. The committee also helped to inform the development of a cultural map, which includes properties, structures, and areas that have cultural or heritage significance. In 2020, the committee was in hiatus due to COVID, and we just recently started meeting again this past October. In 2018, we established the Municipal Heritage Register, which includes 7 designated properties and 23 listed properties. Properties on the registry, listed and designated, are afforded certain protections under the Ontario Heritage Act. As you all know, 44 Bridge Street is not on the register. There has been reference to the former Lakefield Architectural Advisory Committee, LACAC, which was in place under the former Village of Lakefield pre-2001. And in fact, it was disbanded well before that in Lakefield. When LACAC was in place, the only option available to protect properties of heritage value was to designate them. There was no opportunity to list a property. During the time of LACAC, there were 4 properties designated in Lakefield. And in 2005, the OHA changed to allow the ability to also list a property on the register. In the township's annual council communicator of 2018, which is mailed out to all properties in the township, as well as property owners who do not reside here, in my column, as a member of the Municipal Heritage Committee, I wrote about the establishment of the Municipal Heritage Register or listing. And this is what I shared, and these council communicators are still available on the township website in PDF format. So this is what I shared in the article. I continue to sit as a member of the Municipal Heritage Committee. One of the projects we've been working on over the past several months is identifying properties to be placed on a Municipal Heritage Register. This register allows our township to identify properties of cultural heritage value, which is an essential part of municipal heritage conservation. The register is an official list or record of cultural heritage properties that have been identified as being important to the community. The register is different from official designation and is commonly known as listing. Our committee, the Municipal Heritage Committee, will be bringing forward a report to council in the fall. Council's approval is required to add cultural heritage properties that have not been designated. So as far back as 2018, the entire community would have, if they read my section, they would have realized that there was an opportunity to provide properties for the Heritage Register. Reference has been made about the Lakefield Selwyn Township Cultural Resource Map of 2013. And this is it. If you can see it, it's not very good, but that's also available on our website. So reference has been made on this particular document. And it identifies 44 Bridge Street, but it also identifies about 60 other properties. I say all this to note that there are many properties throughout this entire township that could be in the Municipal Heritage Register. The committee and council have worked hard to have significant properties be either listed or designated, and we have respected the fact that there are implications to property owners which may be concerning. The Municipal Heritage Committee will continue to review properties to be considered for inclusion on the register. Nobody is suggesting that 44 Bridge might not have been noted in the past as being of heritage significance, or that it wouldn't have made the list at some point in the future. However, it was not brought forward as a priority through any of the processes discussed above, and the fact that it's not on the register now, and we are dealing with it now. I would also like to note that Rob Lamar has performed a statutory duty under the building code in issuing the demolition permit. He did nothing wrong, yet you may not like the fact that the permit was issued, but suggesting he made an arbitrary decision to ignore his duty must stop. Council will be tasked with reviewing the heritage brief and the recommendation from the Municipal Heritage Committee. We expect this information will be available at the February 23rd meeting, and council will have a difficult decision to make at this meeting. In the meantime, I would ask for respectful and informed discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. We'll then move on to Deputy Mayor Sherry Senes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, through you. Social media can be a good thing in that you can get the word out to many people instantaneously, but it can also be a bad thing when misinformation is freely shared and derogatory and inaccurate comments can be made with no reprisal. It's time to set the record straight. All parties, staff, council, Habitat, and the new owner have been maligned, and yet everyone has done everything correctly, despite being accused of lack of transparency, accountability, and not being involved in heritage. Habitat for Humanity has done nothing wrong. They bought a commercial property with intentions to use it for affordable housing, something we need in our township. They even did due diligence. The property wasn't listed heritage, and they applied for a demolition permit for which they had every right. Council was never advised or apprised, and nor should they be. This was a private sale on a commercial property, treated no different than if anyone watching was selling their property. When Habitat decided to sell for reasons of their own, again, council wouldn't be advised. There is absolutely no lack of transparency here. I found out about the sale the same most people did, through a letter to the editor in the Herald. I appreciate and value heritage and heritage properties just as much as you do. Making efforts to preserve our cultural heritage is important, and council has done many things to protect our heritage properties. In addition, I also have regard for the impact of imposing new rules on a property owner and a purchaser in the middle of a private real estate transaction. We will receive the heritage brief at our next meeting, and once we have all the facts, we will take it from there. Going forward, I encourage people to get all sides of the story before jumping on a bandwagon. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. And I think next we have, who's going next? Councillor Heron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too have a prepared statement here, and I'm extremely disappointed in what has transpired in the past few weeks, and I'd like to make a couple of points, and these comments are both for us as a council and as well as the Save-Old Mill Group, and I guess to Jackie as I guess she's their leader. The general attitude and the misinformation of this group is disappointing. From comments made online and in emails we've received, it shows a lack of respect and knowledge on how some of the processes work and what the true information is, and the questioning of both council's integrity as well as the building department's integrity. Everything is underhanded on the Old Stone Millhouse world. From the real estate agents to Habitat to the chief building official to council, everyone has been deceitful in this world, and I find that extremely untrue and disappointing. And I've got a few comments that I'll share with my colleagues and the rest of the public here, and I will respond to some of them, and then I'll wrap it up in a nice neat bow, Mr. Mitchell. I quote, they didn't put a real estate sign up. There's not a law in Canada that requires you to put up a real estate sign. Therefore, that's a misleading statement trying to show non-transparency towards Habitat for Humanity, and I don't think that's fair. And since there wasn't a heritage designation attached to the property, our CBO had zero authority to deny a demolition permit. And as a matter of fact, and I quote from the building code, the chief building official shall issue a permit referred to in subsection 1 unless, end quote. And the key word is shall. That means he must, unless certain criteria are met in that subsection 1, and they're listed, and none of those criteria were met. I'm not sure where the notion came that this was just an arbitrary decision. Council had no knowledge this property was even for sale. Believe it or not, we do not scour the MLS listings on a daily basis. Since this was not a designated property, the township nor the CBO had a duty to consult, as has been suggested by the group. So any statements in regards to this are extremely misleading and false. There are two quotes directed at council, council specifically, and I quote, "As with most things that smell, follow the money." And secondly, the township would be wise to wait until the February 9th meeting before making any destructive move on this property. End quotes. This group has accused the council of being on the take and made veiled threats. This is unacceptable, libelous, and downright inappropriate. Another quote, "There's lots of land to build a strip mall." End quote. I have no idea where this land is. Where do we have services running through a property that is zoned commercial, that is in walking distance to the downtown right this second? There's none. Furthermore, who's to say it's going to be a strip mall? The group has run with this idea, and that's causing more hysteria. The final quotes are the ones that really, really, really bother me. And these quotes are have been used to describe Robert Lamar. And I quote, "The boneheaded building official, Rob Grabmore, underhanded, non-transparent." Just a few of the comments and words to describe him. And Robert's integrity was called into question far too many times, and Rob has been as transparent as he is legally allowed to be and required on this matter. There are privacy issues and a duty to let purchasers know exactly what is allowed on a property before they purchase. He has followed all the rules of the building code and the code of conduct that the building code spells out. I have butt heads with Rob myself, Lord knows, and I've been furious with some of the decisions he's made, but I would never, ever, ever take his call out his integrity or his character. And frankly, as a group, it's just appalling. Between misinformation, lack of respect, as well as some of the petty arguments that have been made, it certainly knocks the credibility down a couple notches in my book. Just last night, the Save Old Mill Facebook group, it was suggested that Selwyn Township was not transparent and neither has not been transparent, and neither was Habitat. To which Jackie Ouellette stated, and I quote, "Too bad H4H has turned a meeting with council to share information about OSMH and how our community supports designated heritage into a dog and pony show about the lack of transparency." End quote. It should be noted that this thread was deleted for some reason. However, I do have a screenshot to back up my claim. In fact, in another comment, Jackie called the H4H letter presented to council tonight, and I quote, 6 pages of drivel that shows incompetence, lack of real community engagement at any point, end quote. Does this sound like a group who wants to work with anybody? Or is it someone or a group and people who are dead set against even entertaining the idea of a fulsome and reasonable discussion? I feel that the discussion, the only way to move this discussion forward, the group must have clear and concise information, stop the mudslinging and character assassinations of both staff, council, and both parties involved in this simple real estate transaction. You need to be honest with the group and tone down the riotous comments to incite the masses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Heron. We'll then move on to Councillor Ballantyne.
Yes, good evening, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I will be briefer because I think most things have been said. First of all, I'd like to thank the community for all their interest with their communications over the past few weeks, and we always do appreciate community input. This is a very complex scenario, and council must wait until we get the heritage brief expected by the next council meeting. At such time, we should have the appropriate/accurate information available in order to make an informed decision. There seems to be conflicting facts and partial accuracies being passed amongst community members. I would like to seriously say that we take decisions made at the council table very seriously, and believe that we always employ due diligence and transparency when making decisions.
Thank you very much, Donna. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to wrap this up with some concluding comments. And like my colleagues, I've watched the debate going on, and I've taken a few minutes to put some thoughts together. And I'm just going to deliver them. And my apologies where I may tread over some of the same ground as my colleagues. So first of all, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to present today. There's no question that the issue is of keen interest to a host of interested parties, many of whom have different perspectives. I appreciate and recognize those many perspectives. My role, and I believe the role of my colleague councillors, is to seek a way forward that takes into account the broad interests of our community. It is my view that in conducting a community conversation, it is essential that we respect one another, that we appreciate that there are valid perspectives beyond our own, and accept that everyone is seeking to act in the community's best interest as they see that interest to be. Acting with courtesy and respect is a hallmark of life in Selwyn Township. Ours is a place where neighbors come together and lifelong friendships are forged. We are not merely a collection of building roads and bridges. We're a community with heart and a soul. It is what makes this a very special place to live. It's why I've chosen to live here. As many of you know, I've been in the political arena for many decades, and I have found that when people throw dirt, they usually lose ground. Personally, I have been deeply involved in historic preservation during my career. For 2 years, I was the minister responsible for the National Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada. I've had to deal with the issues of heritage preservation at a national level. And I'm not a stranger to tough decisions, to having to weigh conflicting priorities, to hearing vigorous debate. And what I have learned is that as much as I may wish otherwise, things are rarely black and white. Nuance is often what prevails. There are 4 specific areas that I'd like to touch on. First is to reiterate some facts and to set aside some misinformation. The property at 44 Bridge Street is currently not protected under the Heritage Act, and therefore none of its provisions currently apply. Neither the current Heritage Committee nor the previous Lakeville LACAC recommended this property for designation, although as Councillor Locke pointed out, 4 were under the previous LACAC committee. The property in question is zoned commercial and has been since 1988. That fact is a matter of public record. Any development on the property consistent with the official plan and zoning bylaw is permitted by right. This is the case with all property in our township. The CBO, the Chief Building Officer, Rob Lamar, in issuing a demolition permit, acted appropriately and consistent with his responsibilities under the building code. He obeyed the law. He is a great professional, and dispersions on his character and motives are totally inappropriate, and they need to stop. The sale of property between a willing seller and a willing buyer is not subject to council review. It's a private transaction. Second, I'd like to note that Selwyn Township has not ignored its historical legacy, and in fact has taken a robust approach to historical protection. I had this all listed out here, but I'm not going to repeat it because Anita went all through it. We have a heritage listing. We've designated a number of buildings. We've gone through a cultural heritage mapping exercise and done a number of other things. So council has worked hard on the issue of heritage protection. Thirdly, there are a number of topics that came up tonight. we talked about built heritage preservation, economic opportunities, affordable housing, rental accommodations, and the integrity of the process. They're all important issues. And finally, in conclusion, I'd like to note some key questions that I will be considering in moving forward. Councils, for the most part, have protected built heritage in cooperation with property owners. Cooperation, not confrontation, has been the Selwyn way. Is there a path forward that allows for this approach? How do we strike the balance between built heritage preservation and the economic impact on individual property owners of our actions? Third, what will the review of the heritage brief and committee assessment tell us about the property? And finally, is there a path forward that addresses the various concerns identified by the interested parties? Given the polarized nature of the debate, I suspect whatever the eventual decision may be, some people may be disappointed. I want to assure everyone that my perspective will be shaped on what I believe to be in the best overall interest of Selwyn Township. Thank you very much. I'll now ask a council for a motion to receive those delegations and to receive the report. Moved by Anita. Do I have a seconder? Seconder by Sherry. All those in favor? That is carried. Colleagues, we have the rest of our meeting to do, but I'm going to call a 5-minute recess. And let me just see here. We are at 6:15, so if at 6:22, we will resume the meeting. Thank you. Okay, we're just waiting for Jerry and we'll get going.
Jerry's just having some technical difficulties. If you just give me a minute, I'll see if we can get it rebooted.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mayor Mitchell, he's going to try to reconnect, but he is saying for us to proceed if council wishes to.
Well, I tell you what, I'll give him another minute. If he's not able to get on, we'll start.
Sounds good.
Well, I think colleagues will get going and Jerry can rejoin us. We have the rest of our agenda to get through. So why don't we begin then with our municipal officers and staff reports. The first one is from the treasurer, Lane, on our PSAB budget 2021 compliance report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As directed by council at the January 29th meeting, bringing forward the budget tonight for adoption. Of course, this is a process that started early in the fall of 2020. We've had a series of public meetings. Those meetings have been broadcast on the internet. We've had information posted on our website to support each of those meetings and then presentations thereafter. So this is really the last part of the process, and I want to thank council for their questions throughout their process, and also for the management team in putting forward the budget recommendations for council to consider. As Mayor outlined, we have our budget compliance report, which is a requirement under the Act, and this would be the last step to essentially approve the budget and allow us to move on with our work in 2021.
Okay, thank you, Lane. Questions, colleagues, on the report? I don't see any. Sherry, are you moving? Okay, Sherry is moved. Donna has seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hands. That is carried. Okay, colleagues, we're now moved into consent items, and let me try to is I will ask, first of all, I'll ask Anita, any items that you would like pulled? No. Donna, any items you would like pulled?
Yes, on the correspondence, 5, 6, 10, 14, and 18.
Hold on just a second.
Oh.
6, 5, 6, 10,
6, 10,
5, 6, 10, yeah,
14, and 18.
yeah, okay.
And on the Peterborough County, 3 and 5.
County 3 and 5. Okay, so Anita and Sherry, you don't have, or Anita, you said you had none, Sherry?
Unmute for me. Number 5, Mr. Chair.
6, 5, so you both,
Number.
you mean, oh, the insurance, yes, okay. I got it, yep. And, okay, so I'm going to ask for, and so I'm duplicating here, 6, 5, 6, 10, 6, 23. Okay, so we got a bit to go through, but the first item up then would be number 5, the municipal officers and staff reports on insurance. Sherry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for the report, but I believe that council's looking for a more in-depth report, and I recognize that it will probably have to go into close, but I would request that that come forward to a closed meeting with additional information.
Okay.
Sorry, I could speak to that. So we do have closed session this evening. And as noted in the report, I'm happy to answer any questions in closed session about any particular claims that council might have.
Okay, thank you.
So we can do that this evening.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good. Any other questions on that report? No? Okay, we're going to move all of these at the end when we come. So the first.
Sorry, pardon me, Mr. Mayor, just to advise that Councillor Heron is here by phone. So he has told me that he doesn't have anything to pull for consent, but he is on the phone.
Okay, Terry, that's great. I'm just for voting. We'll have him on mute because we're going to vote all of these items together, and I'll have him say yay or nay. Okay, so he has no items to pull. So we're on correspondence now, 6, 5, which is the AMO OSIP funding. And that was Donna, I think you wanted 6, 5, go ahead.
This is actually just a question to staff. And I was wondering if we would be eligible for the second intake of the modernization program. It talks about ideas for partnership and innovation or innovative ideas. And I'm just wondering if they have had a chance to have any discussion about that.
Through you, Mr. Merrick, it's Lane. I could maybe just have a brief response to that. We've just reviewed the initial process. Definitely, we would qualify, given some of the work that was already done on the service delivery reviews last year, and some of the recommendations coming out of that with respect to customer service modernization, service integration, things like that. I think we will definitely be bringing forward some recommendations to council in the coming weeks. As a management team, we haven't really sat down and went through it in detail, but I think that there's enough areas there that we could put together a solid application.
Okay, thank you.
On the same one, Lane, does this application, I know some do and some don't, but does this application require a council resolution as part of the app?
If it is similar to the last one, it would require one, and so that's why we would have to have it in before that deadline. So I think that we would have, I think we have 2 more meetings before that point.
Yeah,
so,
we've got 2 more meetings. So either the 23rd or the first meeting in March then, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. Donna, was that okay for you?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, so the next one is 6, 6. I think that's yours, Donna.
Yes, it is. It's the AMO policy update, and the first part of the report talks about expanded library broadband. And I'm not certain that we could take advantage of this, but we are having, I think we've solved some of our problems in the Ennismore branch, but it still is somewhat sketchy at times. But it says in the second paragraph that the libraries eligible, or the branches eligible, are ones that are within 5 kilometers of a secondary school. We're within 5 kilometers of an elementary school. So I just wanted confirmation that that would put us out for sure. I think it probably would, but I wanted to bring it up.
Lane?
Lane, if you know.
I can say that our CEO, Sarah, definitely followed up with the Ontario Library Service on that, basically the day that the release came out. Initial indications are that they already have public libraries in mind that would qualify for the funding, but she is in contact with their representative at the OLS, and if there's anything that we can do, we definitely will. And I would say specifically the Ennismore branch is one that we would have high on our list because of the internet connectivity issues we've had there.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. The next one is 610. I think, Donna, you identified that?
Yes, it's the resolution from the health board thanking healthcare and frontline workers, and they were looking for endorsement. So I just thought that that would be appropriate for us to do, to endorse that recommendation. I don't have it in front of me, but I think I made notes, and I think I'm correct, aren't I, in my assumption?
Yes, you are. And if council were to want to do that, we can do that separate that out and do it specifically. I had pulled that one as well. I just want to make a point, and I'm sure it's shared by all councillors, that the sentiment expressed on that, which was for the whole region, that as a council, we very much feel the same way about the frontline workers and healthcare workers in our township, including our fire department right here in Selwyn. So
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Sorry, I think we actually already passed that resolution.
Did we?
I think so. I think it came out a little bit earlier and we already got on it, but it wouldn't hurt to do it again, but I have a feeling we already did it.
Okay. Well, I know the sentiment is there, so.
Yes.
Yes, Donna.
Yeah, I just wondered, this is not really mentioned coming out from the health board, but there was a fairly negative letter in the, I think, Peterborough Examiner in the summer from one of our local pharmacies saying that they received no support from the municipality during the first wave of the pandemic. So I don't know whether we would want to send them a letter of thank you. Not all pharmacies actually in our municipality. I don't know if that doesn't really come under this, but it might mend some fences. Don't know what other people think.
Yeah, I tell you what, Donna, I'm going to talk about pharmacies in my portfolio report when I talk a little bit about public health. So why don't we just park that to there? Okay.
That's fine. Yes.
Okay. So that's 610, and I think, Donna, you had 14.
Yes, 14 is actually just a copy of the February library newsletter, and I was just going to direct council to that if they're interested in, like, I will give a summary of our meeting and in my portfolio, but that explains all their programs in detail, and it's a pretty good read if you're interested.
Thank you, Donna. And I think you're up on 18 as well. Okay,
this is just a question to staff. it's talking about the municipal act regarding elections. And I just wanted to ask Angie if she sees any problems in the changes that were made or are proposed.
Angie?
Sorry, I'm just going to have to look at it just quickly. It was a while ago since I looked at it. That was Mississippi Mills.
Yeah, and Lake of Bays.
Okay, hang on here. Sorry, I have too much paper here.
Angie, I tell you what, we'll go on to the next one and then we'll come back and give you a
Okay,
chance.
thank
to
you.
go through it. Okay. So that was 18. Now I had 23, and this is directed at Maine. The negative impacts. It had a discussion about the negative impacts of the deferring of the current value assessment. And I just interested, Lane, are we being impacted by that as well?
Yes, to you, Mr. Mayor. I think overall, our local team here at MPAC did a great job in terms of trying to get us additional growth, and that's the true growth. I think what the correspondence referring to there is the actual province-wide reassessment, and I had spoken a little bit about that at the budget time. When you start looking at the values that we have in place and what the base value is right now, as soon as we get too much farther down the road, it all of a sudden stops to lose its relevance. So I know that the MPAC is prepared. They're just kind of waiting for word from the province to move on, and MPAC is definitely affected by the pandemic, but they're doing everything that they can behind the scenes to be prepared when they get the word from the province to move ahead. So I would agree with the sentiment of the letter, but I do know that MPAC's ready to go.
Okay, thank you. And then Donna, no, that's it for there. So then we're in, I think, Donna, you wanted item 3 in the county report.
Yes, that's correct. It's related to County Road 20. And we had a police services board last week and we discussed it somewhat. We're going to put the Black Cat up 1 week a month until our April 26th or 29th meeting to have pretty consistent statistics on what the speed is on that road. And then I also discussed, because I think it was asked at County Council of Inspector Darling about the possibility of making it a community safety zone. And Chris Galliazza said he was going to check the Highway Traffic Act and see what would be possible to do there. And he would report back at the end of April as well.
Thank you, Donna. And item number 5 under the county report.
Yes, that's me as well. It's the report on waterfront development and the new official plan. And I had a question, and I don't know if this is discussed under it. I did read it, and I didn't see anything about existing lots of record that would be vacant. And I would have a concern that if somebody has purchased a lot of record and then if it's not infilling, because it looks kind of like they're just talking about infilling, if it's maybe isolated somewhere, if they would be prevented from developing that lot. I don't know if it's a committee or if it was a report to county council. Just check here.
Yeah, what it is the planner at the county is writing a series of papers on different topics relating to the renewal of the official plan, and that was number 3. I was going to bring that one up as well. There are a number of issues in that report that can have an impact on Selwyn. In fairness to the planner, and I'm sort of kicking myself, I should have mentioned it in advance, is that perhaps your specific question and my general question is to discuss the contents of that report in relation to our township. Perhaps that could come back at our next meeting, because just to give the planners a chance to take a look at it, because if they want to go ahead and answer, but it just might be a little bit unfair without letting them know that we're going to ask them that. So Rob, is that something that, I think I see Jeanette there too. Is that something you could come back with, and Donna's specific point, and then the more general point about some of the implications of what Brian has written in his report?
So, Mr. Mayor, this is Jeanette. Absolutely. Maybe you could help me out and just provide me with some of your questions in an email, and then I can respond at the next meeting.
I will do that. And you have Donna's specific question as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. I just wrote it down. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, good. Is that okay, Donna? We'll come back in a couple weeks.
Yep. Okay.
And so that takes care of that. There's nothing on the committee reports that anybody has pulled, nothing on the petitions. So then to go back to Angie, were you able to find 18, Angie?
Yes, thank you. So this is actually, these two letters are in support of the Township of Wollaston. I actually haven't seen Wollaston's original request. So I am always a little bit reluctant when these suggestions are made that are very broad. I'm not sure how effective they are in giving good feedback to the ministry without some very specific examples. I can just tell you, when I consider adding people to the list of electors, yeah, I go through a process, and if I have a question or a concern, I will reach out to the ministry and discuss things with other colleagues. So I've never had a situation where I was totally stumped, I guess, to put it that way. And in terms of reporting election fraud, that is a tricky one. I'm not sure if there's a real accessible way to do that without going through a full investigation, and that would be a police matter. So if I were to make a recommendation, I think we should just receive them.
Thank you. Okay, that seems to be it. So maybe we can have a motion to receive all of them except for 10, 610, and we'd have a separate motion on 10 for support that I think Donna is willing to move. So the first motion is to receive everything but 10. I need a motion. Anita, a second by Donna. All those in favor? That's carried. And then Donna, that we support number 10 and express our appreciation to the folks in Selwyn. So that's Donna, seconded by Anita. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, colleagues, we will move on then to our portfolio reports, and we'll start with Donna.
Okay, the library, I have a few things to bring up. We have applied to Parks Canada. We heard that this was a potential opportunity to receive park passes to lend out at our branches for day use at any provincial park. So we have 3 day passes, I think it was 3 for each of our branches that we can lend out once the weather becomes appropriate. I don't know that anybody goes to the parks in the winter, or if they even police it. So I'm not sure about that. I mentioned our February newsletter, which is number 14 in the correspondence. We've talked about the need to have a patron code of conduct. I think it was because of Sherry. It happened in Lakefield. She's not laughing. No, it was somebody that was under the influence of drugs, and they were sleeping in the washroom and sleeping in the corner, and I don't know, we never really heard what else, but the staff were concerned about the safety of the person once they went out onto the streets and so on. So I think we're going to do a code of conduct and put it on the wall like we did in the council chamber. And we still haven't set up our fundraising committee because we're still trying to sort out the limitations that are on us or that surround the board for the ability to fundraise. So I think our next meeting will get that sorted out. And the police services board, besides County Road 20, we're gathering Black Cat stats. And I think we settled on 15% over the speed limit so that it would be a little bit more realistic for council rather than enforceable speed, which is 20%, I believe, so that we may have some more high normal or high actual concerns, because the way they set the Black Cat up, it was just for enforcement, not for just being, they did show the number of, if you looked at the graphs, it showed the number of cars that were doing 5 or 10 or 15, but most people just look at that little arrow at the top that is low, medium, high. So they're going to reduce that, the higher limit down a little bit so that the police services board can use that for statistics in preparing their request for a speed awareness board in the 2020 budget. And the link still has not received notice that the grant will be extended farther than initially given. I think that's all.
Thank you, Donna. We'll go to economic development and business retention and attraction. Deputy Mayor Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kawartha Construction has bought the Kawartha Bakery property. Rollison Bridgenorth has added pizza to their menu. The Loon in Lakefield is open for takeout. The menu's on their Facebook page. And I encourage everyone to spoil yourself for Valentine's Day and do takeout. Most of our local restaurants are offering special menus and they sure can use our business. There is a bit of confusion amongst business owners as to the newest rules that have been put in from the province. Some business owners are just shaking their heads saying, you know, I don't know what they mean. So anywhere we can get some clarification for them would be appreciated, and buy local. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. We'll go next to Public Works and Recreation, Councillor Heron.
And thank you, sir. Sorry for the delay there. Somehow our internet got knocked out. So on the Public Works side, they're still doing the snow plowing and they've been out clearing some of the cul-de-sacs, doing a bang up job. On the Park and Rec side, we just had a meeting last week, and actually we had a trails meeting yesterday, and it was brought to our attention with the arenas. It's a perfect storm of not knowing what's going on now with the openings. They're saying the 16th, but if it changes, they don't know what to do with the ice. That's our dilemma right now. So Mike wants to pull it, but we don't want to pull it in case that they do open it up. So we don't know. So it was discussed, and typically we say that, you know, Friday they start leaking the news. By Monday, you know exactly what's going to happen. So at this point, we're in flux on the ice, but more than likely, I'm going to say it's probably going to stay in for now so we can gain a little bit of revenue. That's all from us.
Thank you, Jerry. And then finally to Anita on culture and senior services and sustainability.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, as far as sustainability, not much happening. We continue, our accessibility advisory committee continues to meet on Zoom, although we canceled this month's meeting because we didn't have much on the agenda. I see from the Community Care Lakefield Facebook page that they're selling Valentine's Day cards for $1 with proceeds obviously going to community care. It says help support Community Care Lakefield when you send a Valentine to your loved one in 40 Rabbit Street, 24 Ermitanger, 85 Concession or the Regency. Order by February 9th for delivery by February 12th. So today's the 9th, so maybe it's too late to order that. I also wanted to, the Bell Rotary Polar Plunge was done virtually this year. And I think our Parks and Rec manager, Mike, his video should probably be posted pretty soon. I think the donations continue to be accepted till the end of the month. But somewhere on the Bell Rotary page, I'm assuming that all of this year's virtual participants should be a lot of fun to look at. So I suggest everybody head on over there.
Thank you, Anita. I'll touch on a couple of things. First of all, Sherry and I attended a special county meeting this morning, and Sheridan Graham was appointed the new CAO of Peterborough County. So that happened this morning. And the second thing is, for the first time, at least that I'm aware of, it may have happened before, we held an evening open house public meeting on our budget. So basically, our treasurer went through a fairly extensive presentation, quite good, with lots of bells and whistles, lots of information for the public, and then opened it up for questions. And that was a change that the council had made, and we're going to have to, I guess, work a little harder to try to attract more people to attend it. But it was there and it was advertised, and Sherry, I don't think any members of the public asked the question. So, but it was there, and that process continues to move through with the county, and the budget will be back in front of county council, I believe, at its next meeting. I wanted to talk a couple of things about public health. Jerry brought it up a little bit. So first off is just to something I said today at our press conference, but I want to repeat it here. And that's a great big bouquet and thank you to people in our community and in our region. Our numbers have dropped dramatically over the last 5 weeks. We've been on a downward curve. That very much is a result of people adhering to the stay-at-home order and the emergency orders. And so that's a very positive trend. It doesn't happen by accident. It happens by a lot of hard work from folks that live in our community. So great big thank you to them. It's really important as we open things back up that we remember that although there are things that under the new orders that we will be allowed to do that we weren't before, that we continue though to do them in the correct way. So in other words, you still need to maintain a physical distance, you still need to wear a mask, you still need to wash your hands, you still need to stay home if you're sick, you still shouldn't be gathering in large groups. So all of those things are still there, and quite frankly are going to be with us for some time. The what's taking place in our area is scheduled to take place is that we will move from the emergency order lockdown provisions, which came into effect, I believe, on December the 26th, to the framework, provisions. So in other words, the color coding that we got used to in the fall will be reintroduced for us. We're scheduled to have that happen on the 16th. The actual color we will have, whether it was a green zone or a red zone or a yellow zone, will be determined by a number of measurements. The one that's most known is the number of cases per 100,000 per week. And so it's too early to know exactly where we'll come in, but we are scheduled to come out into into that. Last week, the medical officer of health, in her comments, characterized last week's numbers as yellow numbers. So, but again, it's going to depend on where we are when we actually come out. The stay-at-home order is scheduled to be lifted at the same time. So we will go back really to the regime that was in place in the fall. They have made some changes on the provisions under each color code. So although it's very similar to what it was, there are some changes. Jerry is right. It's what's planned to be. One of the concerns is there are variants circulating in the province. Most people have heard about them on the news, right? You've got the UK variant, you've got the South African variant. We have I think it's the Brazilian variant. They're circulating. They're not in our area. We haven't detected anything. Public Health has made a commitment that they will inform the public if they are detected in our area, but they are elsewhere in the province. And so if they become prevalent, they're what we've been advised is that they're far more infectious and they spread much more rapidly. So that's a bit of a concern out there. Janet is on the line. I think she's on the line. All of these changes are going to have impacts on township operations. Janet, I'm assuming we're in the process of going through all of that, and we'll work over the next few days exactly what that will mean. I don't know whether you wanted to comment at all on that.
Yeah, no, for sure. We are going through it, and we will be doing that. Of course, at this point, at least the last time I checked, we didn't actually have the legislation. So we always do want to make sure that we actually check what's in the legislation, because sometimes it's a little bit different than the verbiage that's released, kind of outlining it. So, but yes, for sure, we are doing that, and we do have meetings scheduled with our counterparts across the county and also with Public Health.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to other new and unfinished business. We have a notice of motion regarding cannabis cultivation. It has been moved by Councillor Ballantyne, and it's been seconded by Deputy Mayor Senes. It has been circulated, the contents of it, so I don't think there's a need to read it into the record. It's been put around, but I am going to ask the mover and the seconder if they want to speak to it, and I'm going to start with the mover and anybody else afterwards, but I'm going to go first to Donna if she wants to speak to it.
Okay, thank you very much. Through you. This has actually been precipitated because of a rural property in Ennismore that is, well, we're pretty sure that they're going to move ahead with getting their license to grow cannabis on about 40 acres, and the property is situated right in the middle of two residential areas. And when I was considering an agricultural crop in our bylaw, I was thinking on large farms, 100, 150, 200 acres. I wasn't thinking of small plots of land that were designated rural. So this has caused a lot of concern for a lot of residents. So I thought it would be appropriate to open or relook, ask staff to look at best practices, and then have another look at our bylaw as it relates to outdoor crops on agriculture or rural property. And then there was a session at Roma that was, well, it was entitled Cannabis, a Growing Concern. So there are concerns in the province, and I have read some of them on the website. So that was really what precipitated this, that we maybe were a little bit too lenient with that part of our bylaw, and we may be able to tighten some things up. I think that's all I have to say on that.
Sherry, did you want to make a comment? As the seconder, you're just seconding it, right?
Donna pretty much said it. I think we just want to, as she said, tighten up the bylaw to ensure the cannabis is grown where we envisioned it, away from residents. So This will give us the opportunity to have the consultant have a look at it and come and give some suggestions, and that staff can bring them back to us so we can tweak it and make it better.
And if I look at the motion, we're looking at getting a report back to council on the 27th with some suggestions. Okay, Jerry?
Thank you. Through you, I guess my only question to I guess staff or Robert, would this then inhibit the guy we've already given approval to, or would this nope, doesn't? Forget the question. Have a good day.
Okay, Anita.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I fully support this motion. I had brought up in a previous council meeting that when we were discussing this cannabis cultivation, I was envisioning, like real farm area, real agricultural area, as opposed to some potential cannabis cultivation very close to housing, residential areas. So I fully support this motion.
Donna?
I just asked for a recorded vote on this because it's very important to me and the residents. What would be important to the residents of the whole township if something similar happens in their areas.
Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Councillor Valentine?
Yes.
Councillor Herron?
Yes.
Councillor Locke?
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell?
Yes.
And Deputy Mayor Senes?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, I need I'm going to get a motion to go into, Sherry, did you have other business? Sorry.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to mention under other new business that the county is doing a series of stay home, stay safe messaging. And the Mayor, Mitchell, has his message on the county website. I think it's a YouTube. And I also have one, and my message is to support local business. So you're welcome to visit the county website and have a look what we have to say. And if you like it, like it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Okay, anything under other new business? No. Okay, so what we're going to do is take a motion to go into close, or Angie, just help me, because we probably, do we want to do the bylaws now so that we complete and then
that would be great. So if we could do the authorizing bylaw for the Scout building and get that done, and then we would end the live stream meeting and then we would do the bylaw, for the Scout building, pass a resolution to go into closed, and that will end the live streaming portion of the meeting.
so we can do the confirming bylaw as part of the in the closed session.
Well, we'll rise from closed during our conference call, and then we'll do the confirming bylaw then.
Okay, but we won't be live streaming the confirming bylaw.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, I got it. So first of all, we got the authorizing the former Scout building renovations that we passed that last time. Sherry is moving that, seconded by Nita. All those in favor? Hands, please. Yeah, great. That's carried. And then we need a motion to go into closed. That's Anita, seconded by Donna. All those in favor? We will go into closed, colleagues. This will end the live stream. You have a dial in. Let me just check here. It is 7:07. If we can be on the call by 7:12, it gives us a 5-minute break. We'll start the closed session. Thank you, everybody.